hello there.
Hello? Hello?
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for me to finally do the day late, dollar short review of the Steiner T5Xi 3-15 by 50 first focal plane optic.
Okay.
Before we kick this review off, I genuinely feel bad for Steiner. I don't know if y'all have noticed what I have, but there's a lot of influencers, Grand Thumb, and a bunch of others that get these Steiners in for review. Steiner sends them to them, and the review never gets done. There was a Facebook post in the Wayback Machine where Grand Thumb's like, oh, I'm going to compare the P4Xi and the T5Xi. Never happened. And there's a lot of other YouTubers that'll be like, oh, look at this optic I just got in from Steiner, and then they don't do anything with it. There's definitely reviews for the P4Xi, don't get me wrong, but any of the T series or the M series that were given away didn't get reviews, except for the shitty M8Xi that Aaron Cowan destroyed. But he's been running this same optic I have on top of my rifle for years now, just like I have. A lot of guys take these T&E optics and don't actually do the full reviews on them, which is a shame. In fact, for this optic, the only other review from a big YouTuber-ish, because it's Mr. Guns and Gear, he's got 700,000 subscribers or something, way more than I'll ever have, but he's the only other person to do a review on this. And C-Does, of course, did the bigger brother to this, but it's a quality optic that nobody pays attention to because it doesn't get any press. Not because it's not any good. And there were some issues when it was first launched, but there's honestly, I've never seen an optics company done so wrong in the time I've been on YouTube, other than their cheapest offering, which is the P4Xi. I know they have other models like their Hunter models, but nobody cares about that stuff.
Got him! Got him!
And honestly, the P4Xi has a lot of praise because it's a very effective optic, but the T5Xi gets brushed over because reasons. The T5Xi has shot glass in it. It's just really good quality glass, and a lot of people love the T5Xi. There's a big cult following, especially guys over at Big Techs or that bought the Big Techs packages. A lot of those guys love their T5Xis. They like them over the P4Xi, but you don't see videos on them, do you? And they're tough as nails. They've always run for me. They're very well tested and robust, except for the M8Xi, obviously. A little too soon for some people. Sorry, Steiner.
Why are you the way that you are? Honestly, every time I try to do something fun or exciting, you make it not that way.
Thanks for dealing with that aside. Do you need a medium range magnification scope that perfectly balances size and performance? A rugged optic that isn't a Nightforce or Schmidt & Bender money, but is in, dare I say, the same performance bracket. An optic that has not a 44mm objective in this footprint, but it is man enough, dare I say German enough, to go with a 50mm. The optic that is possibly the best performing of the T5Xi series, a true darling that's extremely overlooked and underappreciated to the point that it's now discontinued. Welcome, friends, to the Steiner T5Xi 3-15 by 50 review. Let's get the boring specifications out of the way. The weight is 29.8 ounces without the caps on the scope. So with them on there, let's call it 30 ounces. The length is 13.1 inches. The width and height, I was too lazy to measure, and it's not in any of the material. The magnification range is 3-15, which means it's a 5 power scope, hence T5Xi.
Oh, that's why they call it that.
The tube diameter is 34mm. It's a first focal plane optic. The field of view at 3x is 36 feet at 100 yards, and at 15x is 7.3 feet at 100 yards. The eye relief for the entire T5 series is 3.5 to 4 inches based on your diopter setting and magnification. It does shrink slightly as you dial it up. But again, if you mount the optic at maximum power and, excuse me, miss, to properly set your eye relief, and then you'll be in the best position when you do dial up to max power versus mounting it at minimum power, and then having to adjust your head when you get to max power. So always mount every single scope you have, be it an LPVO or anything like that, on maximum power. The reticle is the SCR mill. They've since updated to the SCR mill 2, but this is the original SCR mill, the special competition reticle. The adjustments are 0.1 MRAD. The turrets are exposed, non-locking turrets. The elevation turret has 34 mils of adjustment, and the windage turret has 23 mils of adjustment. The turrets also have a very cool feature that we'll get into when we go down the review, but they're called the never lost turrets, and you'll see why in a little bit. The battery life, who knows? Probably not a lot. When I say the literature is hard to find, I've never used an owner's manual before, and I had to dig all the stats out in the series pamphlet that came with it. And then for the reticle, it's also a general purpose Steiner reticle guide, and I had to find my reticle because this series is offered with other reticles, but there's a lot of stuff going on. So of course they didn't put the battery life in there. My guess is not a lot. Coinciding with the Illumination, the other thing that's missing is the water resistance level. However, for Steiner, they standardize most of their optics in their P4 series and the T series for 33 feet, which is pretty good. And that's on par with other optics that are 34 millimeter tube from Trigicon, let's say, or another defense manufacturer, which is outstanding. But I can't confirm for 100% that's exactly what it is, but I know these T and M series are very well tested. Again, save the M8Xi. The parallax adjustment is in meters, and it's 25 meters to infinity. All right, let's go to our first section: turrets, controls, throw direction, and magnification range. So your turrets are the never lost turrets. I'm going to try to get smarter on some of you here in a second, but it's 1 click equals 0.1 MRAD, and they're very precise, very high effort. They are not locking, which they've addressed in the new series coming out, the T6 series. But if you're looking at one of these used, they are non-locking turrets, but they are very high effort. They are tactile and audible. If my refrigerator didn't kick on, you'd probably still hear it, but they're very audible and tactile. You can see they're also not very tall. They're nice and out of the way. This is a very low profile scope for something with a 50 millimeter objective, and they're very nice to use. You'll also see in this footage that I filmed before shooting it today to check my zero that the elevation turret has this very unique window on top that you can view from the prone position or behind the rifle. As you dial up, all you have to do is come up off the rifle slightly, make your adjustments, and you'll see where you are in the turret. You will never ever get lost in this turret, which is stellar. Very tactile and audible, excellent contact surface, detents are stellar. You're going to really enjoy dialing with this. You're going to know exactly where you are. You don't really skip any increments. Every single click feels positive and like you're going through a solid detent. It's also 3 Allen screws to take the turret off and re-zero it. It's very nice with this reticle because it's such a basic reticle that dialing is almost a necessity if you want to make a long-range precision shot with this, even though it's a 3-15. And you'll never get lost in the turret. You can set your zero very easily by taking the Allen screws off, making a quick adjustment with your turrets and dropping it down, which I've done already. And I'm on my winter zero, which luckily for me is only 3 mils up from my summer zero for some reason. Yes, ma'am. All right, let's get to controls, which we kind of already started into. But you have a very nice, solid adjusting eyepiece for your diopter setting with a locking ring, which is very important. You have very nice knurling on the magnification ring and a very nice throw. Mr. Guns and Gear also indicated there's a very small ramp on the numbers here so you can very easily at a glance see what your magnification power is, not that you'd get lost. And since it's a first focal plane, it doesn't really matter. The way I remember is on the supplied throw lever, I put it on 7. So it's right in the middle of the magnification. So I know that's 7, and then 8's right there, 9. 10 is not marked, 11's not marked, 12 skips 13 and 14, then goes to 15. Which functionally, there's really not much difference between 12 and 15. I usually run it on 7, to be honest. But back to controls, the only issue I have is the illumination knob is, it's not that it's not positive, it's just really small contact surface. The cap is knurled, but this is the battery cap. And to replace the battery, you have to hold this somehow, spin this off, replace the battery, which is not a SCR 2032, it's some other battery, and then tighten it all the way back down, making sure it's positively sealed. So it's kind of annoying. I'm not the biggest fan of it, but it is what it is. The parallax adjustment knob is very easy to use. It's out of the way of the illumination knob, and it's very intuitive to spin when you're on the rifle. So it's very quick and easy to find, because this is more important than this more often than not. And I'm not sure if I stated it earlier because the cats are annoying today, but the throw direction is from right to left, not left to right. So very European throw direction. All right, eye relief and eye box. I found the eye relief to be sufficient. Again, mount all of your optics at maximum magnification, especially on an AR platform. Well, on everything. On every single application, mount your optic at maximum magnification. But you can see in the videos when I'm shooting that my face is the proper distance away from the optic in that 3.5 to 4 inch range. I haven't really found an issue in the eye relief or eye box performance of this optic. I just get behind it and go to work, but it's not gonna be what it is on a Vortex Razor 1:6 or another LPVO with a forgiving eye relief and eye box, Trijicon Credo 1:6, so on and so forth. It's not gonna hit those markers, but it is very usable, and for a 3 to 15, it does exactly what it's supposed to do. You will see in the videos I run through the magnification range that I specifically rotate it left to right. Again, this magnification range, while in a 34mm tube, is much more aggressive than any LPVO out there. So you have to understand that your eye box, it's not a 1:6. So your eye box isn't gonna be what a 1:6 is. It's hard when you come from somebody who's always shooting LPVOs or always shooting red dots to say, hey, as you dial this up to 15x, your eye relief and eye box is gonna change slightly. Though what I will say is the eye relief and eye box does not change that much, considering that it's a 5 power scope going from 3 to 15. I found this to be extremely usable. And again, I just plop the rifle down, get my proper head position, get set up on the stock, and then just start pressing shots and going to work. I don't fight this scope at all. I get down on it and do what I gotta do. Glass clarity and image quality. This is phenomenal glass clarity. It's just German HD glass that's sent from Germany to the US, and they assemble it here, much like this rifle. But the Steiner glass is very clear. Everything is etched properly. The colors are very true. I don't see any fisheye whatsoever. You may notice that there's a little bit of chromatic aberration, and I mean an ever so slight amount, and I think on a cloudy day you don't see it, but I think today, because it was so sunny and the targets were spray painted white and or gray, refracting sunlight back at me at high noon, that it caused a little bit of refraction more than it caused chromatic aberration, because I didn't notice the chromatic aberration when I was looking at the trees or the grass or the dirt or anything like that. It was a nice, perfectly clear, crystal clear image, and I'm very happy with what I see every time I look through this. I can positively identify whatever I need to see and hit, and clearly see my hits as I go through the shot process. Lining up, finding the target, getting set, pressing the shot, following the trace, seeing the impact. Which is what you need to do. You need to be able to positively identify your target. You need to find it in the wild, zoom in on it, and then press your shot, which this glass is more than capable of doing. Low light, cloudy day, indoors, wherever I take it, I am greeted with a very beautiful image every single time I look through it. Reticle. The reticle is the SCR reticle, like I said before, that I have. Although there is the Horus H59 that's offered, as well as the original MSR reticle. This is the MSR reticle, and the H59 is here. But I have the SCR reticle, and I really like the SCR reticle. It's very simple, and it's a good reticle to learn on. It doesn't give you too much. It doesn't deprive you of anything. It's a very clear sight picture, and I've had really zero issues using it. I really prefer this reticle. I do like the MSR reticle a lot, and I think if I was doing some long-range bolt action work, I'd want the H59 reticle, but for this DMR, the SCR reticle is perfect. But again, reticles are extremely subjective, and I think I'm gonna get a T5Xi 3 to 18 or 2.6 or whatever it is to 18. The 18 power T5Xi, I think I'm gonna pick that up so I can play with it, and I'll get the MSR in that to compare the MSR2 versus the SCR.
Okay.
All right, illumination. So here's the illumination indoors. This is what it illuminates. It's fine. It's great. Indoors or in the dark. Not really even on a cloudy day. Once you go outside, you can't see it. This, it's hard to show in this footage because of how dim it is. This was a fresh battery. So the same video that you're seeing for the indoor illumination, when you compare it to the outdoor illumination, it looks like it's not on. That's why I closed the cap. And you can't even see it through the GoPro. You can barely see it with all the ambient light pressing into the optic. Even from behind me, it's really hard to see. And luckily, the reticle is black, which contrasts with everything in nature. Unless you live in Hawaii or Iceland or somewhere with volcanic ash, black is the best contrast for all those targets. I don't want to hear people say black doesn't occur in nature. That's a bold-faced lie, but it's in honesty, it's not many places. So luckily, black contrasts with almost everything in nature. We don't really have to worry about daylight illumination with this medium-powered optic. Is it a 3-gun / hunting, tactical, or military optic? Steiner is one of those few companies out there that designates each one of their products per the mission set that it's designed for. They label their products with what role they intend to fill with it. So their P series was really marketed towards law enforcement, so P for police or Polizei. And then there's the T series, which is tactical, and then the M series, which is military. So this is a tactical level optic, which again, for those of you that aren't familiar with those brackets, tactical is meant for hard use in a permissive environment. It's not really military grade, but you can use it in military service, just like the Vortex Razor line and a few other companies that don't really make a military grade optic. They just make tactical optics and send them down range, just like the SIG 1-6, cough cough. So I'm very comfortable saying this is great for tactical applications or for this DMR. If you want the M series, guess what? They make it, so you can buy the M series if the tactical is not good enough for you. The M series in the regular scope bodies, not the M8Xi, which is gonna still be in the comments even though I dog on it every chance I get, because it's a stupid design. That notwithstanding, the rest of the M series and even the T series is very robust. You're not gonna really be found wanting. And for those that haven't been paying attention, this rifle has fallen out of the rack twice, and the scope saved my beautiful MR762. So there's scratches there on the knob that I'm sure you've seen from me rotating it around. I don't abuse my stuff, but I'm also an ignorant caveman sometimes.
What are you simpletons doing?
All right, let's go into what it's good at and what it's bad at. First, what it's good at. It's very handy. It's size efficient for what it is. The turrets aren't really too tall. It's exactly the size it needs to be to do what it's designed to do. So it's a medium range in that 3 to 15 power, and the turrets aren't sticking out. They're not super gaudy. And while everything is very well textured, it's not really snagging on a bunch of stuff because it's out of its own way, which is great. It's excellent for a mid-range setup, so 400 to 600 based on your skills. And you can honestly take this out to 800 or 1,000 yards, no problem, if you are a shooter like Henry from 9-Hole Reviews or something like that, where you have some skills outside of my wheelhouse. But it gives you some great range and capability without weighing down the rifle. And I know that sounds silly to some people that really care about, oh, my rifle's 8 pounds, that's too heavy. 30 ounces for a 3 to 15 with HD glass and a 50 millimeter objective really is not that heavy at all. A lot of these scopes get 35, 40, 45 ounces real fast, and you start wondering if you should just put a 5 to 25 or something like that, which is going to be more. But for a 3 to 15, this is excellent for size, weight, and capability. Remarkably efficient. It's very easy and intuitive to use. I'm not going to say idiot proof, but between the turrets and the reticle being labeled properly and everything like that, it's really hard to get lost in this reticle or the turrets or any of this stuff. And it gave me, a stupid caveman, the exact tools I needed to learn and grow into its capabilities. So it's a good starter optic, but it also carries you through once your skills meet what it's actually designed to do. And you can be really effective with this scope. It's not something that you learn on and then sell. You can keep it and be just fine. I know I kind of hit this in both last points, but just to drill this home, it fits its role well. For me, it's a great DMR optic. It's not too busy. It doesn't have a bunch of bullshit in the reticle you're not going to use. And I would also use this on my R700 SPS Tactical, the 20-inch that I still have in my safe that I haven't done anything with in all these years. But it's not a heavy bolt action. It's not one of those bolt actions that are set up for PRS or something. It's maybe a 700, 800 yard gun, maybe 1,000 if I'm feeling froggy and have 175 grain Black Hills. But I would put that on that rifle to give me good capability without weighing the rifle down. I really mean this when I say this, but it has excellent image quality. The glass is incredibly clear. The reticle is very clear. And the image is very true. There's no tint, there's no chromatic aberration unless there's just overwhelming light coming back at you. So it's very hard to see. There's no bending at the edges, there's no fisheye. You just get behind it and you can see everything that it's capable of showing you in its magnification range, which is excellent. So another thing I'd like to bring up is the parallax is spot on for me. I've never had an issue with the parallax. I laser range find my target, adjust the parallax, and it's always crystal clear. If you don't know how to measure with the reticle, like I don't, I'm really stupid with mil measurements in the reticle. I know you could just hold it on a target and be like, oh, that's how many mils it is away, but I can't do all that math. I'm really dumb.
I'm retarded?
It's nice for me to adjust the parallax and use that as an ability to find the approximate distance as well. And maybe what I should start doing is use the parallax to start learning how to mil measure, or go to a class and have someone teach me, because I am dumb. Another good point is I love the turrets and controls. I know initially when these things rolled out, they had turret issues, which I'm going to get into, but this one is either the secret Gen 2 or the fixed version or whatever. But I wasn't an early adopter of this scope. I bought it when it was well established. I got it on a Black Friday sale for a price that was stupid cheap that I probably shouldn't repeat. And I've had zero issue with the turrets, but I really love how positive and easy the turrets are. They're perfectly sized in my opinion. They don't get in your way. I do wish they locked, which again, they did fix in the T6 series that's coming out. But I've had zero issues with the scope. And lastly, it's been a very tough optic for me. I've had a couple oopsie moments with it that I swore for about 5 hours after it happened and felt really upset and all this stuff, but the optic took it. The glass is tough, the housing's tough, the turrets are tough. It's fallen out of the rifle rack. And my cat knocked it over one day playing with the sling while I had it on the table. Just some wonderful falls. So it's put up with a lot of abuse that I don't put it through, but it happens on my watch, which I really appreciate because, again, stupid caveman.
What are you simpletons doing?
All right, what it's bad at. The initial launch. Those optics had serious tracking issues. And for this video, before I went shooting to confirm my zero after I dialed it back, I ran the turrets up and down multiple times and they obviously returned to the zero that I have it at, which isn't even my summer zero, it's my winter zero for the much lower temperature and humidity, but it returns to zero perfectly. But I would be remiss in my duties if I said that there's probably a few out there that people bought and didn't use that are gonna have tracking issues. Now, Steiner had the optics come back, they fixed them, or they gave the individual a new optic, but you and I both know if there's any significant issue, even if they fix it, it's gonna be the stigma of whatever that is for the rest of the time it exists. So Steiner did take that L. They are out there. If you do have that problem, Steiner will fix it. But a scope mailing out with turrets that didn't track, it's like a performance car shipping with a transmission that doesn't work, which is a massive L. And it does happen still, but it's just a massive L and it should not happen, ever. The reticle can be hard to find at 3 to 4x for some people. I don't have that issue personally, but some of my friends have complained about it when they're using my rifle. And I do like that the stadia lines are thicker and then taper out, because this is a reticle that you zoom in on, not zoom through, like an EOTech 1 to 10. So they made the lines very small at 3x. I like them. I still shoot this on 3x all the time, but it's very hard for some optics to balance that in a first focal plane. I personally like this reticle, but I know, again, reticles are very subjective. Some people are more caveman than I am, and they want very defined stadia. So I understand that. Next is the illumination. It's not even remotely visible during the day at all. In fact, you could have it on, burn it out, and then not even realize, go to your nighttime shoot and then not be able to see anything. It's that bad. So it's not even daylight visible. You could have it on 11 and not know. It's pretty bad. And that's with a fresh battery. I swapped the battery before doing the review on purpose because I'm doing another review and I burned the battery out. So I had to make sure my other optics were good to go. So I made sure not to repeat that mistake by putting a brand new battery in this and not having that issue. On the battery, it isn't common use. And they use that battery, by the way, because this optic demands more electricity for some reason. So it needs to have a bigger battery to supply the energy consistently. It's in the entire T series line. I bet you it's in the T6 line too. It's not hard. You can find them on Amazon, no problem, but it's not a 2032. So people are like, must have 2032 for optic. And then when it's not that spec, they get mad. Understandably so, because the industry decided that was the size, but not Steiner. Another negative is I could honestly hear an argument for locking turrets, but the T6 series has them now, and the way this optic is designed, especially this 3 to 15 with the SCR, you're going to be dialing. So I get it. I prefer locking turrets as that extra insurance policy, but with how high effort these turrets are and how you can look at it and know exactly where it is, it's not the biggest issue, but I do prefer locks personally, so I'm not going to disparage anyone saying it should have them. And like I said earlier, the battery cap is just like a lot of the scopes in this segment where it's a pain to get off, and you have to rotate the illumination all the way over, then take the cap off, then put the battery in, then rotate it all the way back, and then tighten it all the way down, and then make sure you got it tight, because if it's a little bit loose, guess what? It's coming loose.
A what? Oh, fuck. Uh-oh.
All right, in closing, I wish I got to this review sooner, just like Steiner probably does.
No.
This is an excellent scope. I know they had launch problems at first, and C-Does didn't have a great time with his 5-25, and I'm honestly pretty sure I've gotten the secret Gen 2, but this has been an absolutely perfect performer for this rifle and application. It's exactly what I needed to learn and develop on without getting lost. It taught me how to see and hit what I'm looking at, how to use the reticle, use the turrets, do everything I need to do through an optic to be effective. And then once I did learn, it gave me a comfortable, capable, reliable, and a friendly tool to help me get it done. And on this HKMR 762, which is a piston, not an FAL or SCR 17, level aggressive piston, but it's still a 762 piston gun all the same. This optic has never let me down. It's always showed up ready to work no matter what. Rain, shine, darkness, too much light. And honestly, if I find one used, like new or old stock for the right price, I'm gonna buy another one. And I know they make the T6 now, and the only other optic that competes with this directly, in my opinion, is the Night Force 4-16 by 44 F1. I honestly think these are the best two scopes in that form factor. So if you're between the Night Force and this, and one of these pops up for a really good price, I would absolutely take a look at it. I'd also say the Leupold Mark V, though that's a 3-18, so it's kind of a a little bit bigger magnification range, but similar money, similar bracket, and based on your reticle preference. But this T5Xi 3-15 has performed so well, I'm seriously taking a look at and probably am going to buy the T6 3-18 by 56 with the MSR2 mil for my R700. I really love this thing, and I would not go back in time and change my purchase decision having run it all these years. So it definitely gets a big upcheck for me. I know it's discontinued, this is a daylight dollar short, but if you see one of these for the right price, definitely take a hard look at it. Thanks for watching. Take care out there.